People often say, what's wrong with black folks? Why can't they get it together? What's wrong with Latinos? Why aren't they advancing as quickly as they should be? What's wrong with them? Studies have consistently shown for decades that people of color are no more likely to use or sell illegal drugs than whites. Yet they are arrested and incarcerated at grossly disproportionate rates. In some states, 80 to 90% of all drug offenders sent to prison have been one race, African American. And rather than asking what's wrong with them, perhaps we should ask what is wrong with us.
So, it says in 86, the mandatory minimum drug sentences increased. Excuse me. Let's see if there's anything before that. Oh yeah, sorry. Nixon declares the war on drugs in 71. 86 mandatory minimum drug sentences increased. And 94, Clinton signs federal 3 strikes law.
Funny how the media covers white riots versus black protests. Seems like when the protesters are black, the media uses some pretty harsh words.
The bad guys, lawlessness, looting, wild animals,
criminals, and thugs.
Thugs. Isn't it the right word?
However, if you're white and you're tearing up the city because of a game, you're just young people.
Young people danced on it, flipped over cars. As UK fans did stupid things.
Some maybe got a little out of control.
Seeing a scene like this just shows how passionate the UK fans are.
It's so tough to lose, and unfortunately the ugly side that we sometimes see in sports.
And notice how the police always show up to a black protest in military-grade equipment, and yet the media claims they're just doing nothing.
It's inexplicable why the police are doing nothing.
Let's mobilize the National Guard.
If I'm a rioter and I see the police doing nothing, I might feel like I have a license. You would.
But at white riots, the cops actually are standing around doing nothing.
Another group of cops over there just standing there.
No one was really doing anything.
These guys look like they could be watching a parade. And why is it that the leadership of the black community is always called into question?
Where is the leadership?
Leadership.
The black leadership.
The absence of leadership.
And it goes back to leadership, but that leadership has to come from the community.
But no one ever questions the leadership of white parents who let their kids burn down and vandalize their college campus.
These are just young college students who think they're playing some kind of a game with police officers.
Sometimes they don't even call a white riot a riot.
Party gone awry.
Some fans got a bit too rowdy after the win.
A dispute. A bloody brawl.
There was some type of altercation.
Waco, 170 arrested, 9 people dead.
They're not thugs.
Baltimore, no deaths, but it's a riot, chock full of thugs.
Thugs. Just thugs.
What if the media portrayed the white rioters the same as black protesters? Let's switch the audio and see how it plays out.
Breaking news, violent protest.
What you're looking at is the unraveling of the civil society.
Criminals and thugs.
And they're raising hell, and they're destroying property.
These idiotic thugs, rioting and looting, are hurting their own people.
Wild animals burning buildings down.
Especially if they know the media's all there, right? Got the cameras on everyone. It's become its own reality show.
Who acts like that towards a police officer?
Think for yourself. Don't let racist media color your perceptions. Demand fairness in media coverage. Tell the media to put an end to calling black people thugs.
I've got a job working at the police station where I was a summer youth employee working for number 5 precinct. They throw me their keys and I would have to get in their cars and like they park up the block, I had to either back up or take it around the block. Either a kid sitting on a police car. Oh man, my chest just grew about 10 inches, man, because I got in the car and I'm riding. And I started thinking this is what I wanted to do. I became supervisor of Group 42 for the Drug Enforcement Administration. They cross-designated me. I had to get sworn in as a special agent for DEA. So now I'm doing dual tasks. I'm U.S. Marshal and I'm a special agent DA. That's when I picked up the name Batman. I'm talking about Gotham City, man. We were rolling, man. We were jumping on guys in the middle of the night, all of that, swooping down on folks all across the country. Using these sort of tactical operations that we went out on that you would use in Vietnam or use in some type of war-torn zone. And all of the stuff that we were doing, just calling it the war on drugs. And it wasn't very many black guys in my position. So when I would go into the war room where we were setting up all of our drug and gun interdiction task forces, determining what cities where we're going to hit, I would notice that most of the time was always appeared to be urban areas. And that's when I asked the question, well, don't they sell drugs out in Potomac and Springfield and places like that? Well, maybe y'all think they don't. The statistics show they use more drugs out in those areas than anywhere. The special agent in charge, he says, you know, we go out there and start messing with those folks. They know judges, they know lawyers, they know politicians. You start locking their kids up, somebody's going to jerk our chain. He said, they're going to call us on them. Before you know it, they're going to shut us down, and there goes your overtime. What I begin to see is that the drug war is totally about race. If we was locking up everybody, white and black, for doing the same drugs, they would have done the same thing they did with Prohibition. They would have outlawed it. They would have said, let's stop this craziness. You're not putting my son in jail. My daughter's not going to jail. If it was an equal enforcement opportunity operation, we wouldn't be sitting here anyway. It's all about fairness, man, and understanding how would I want to be treated. Whether I'm on that one end or the other end, how would I want to be treated if everything was done equally?
I'm Michelle Alexander. I'm a law professor at Ohio State University and the author of The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. One of the things I find most fascinating in my conversations with white people about the drug war is their insistence that those who are doing time did the crime. So what's the problem? And then I'll say, well, did you ever drink underage? You know, when you were in high school, did you ever drink underage? Did you ever experiment with marijuana? And then very frequently you find people shifting their seat, getting uncomfortable. And this idea that of innocence, that other people are the criminals, but not them, is a thoroughly racialized idea. And, you know, I often point out we're all criminals. We've all made mistakes in our lives. We've all done wrong. Anyone who's an adult has broken the law at some point in their lives. But some of us have the privilege of making certain kinds of mistakes and going on to college or grad school and off to work and never having to check that box on employment applications, while others of us do not. In fact, you know, research shows that a white man with a criminal record is more likely to be hired than a black man without a criminal record. So even this system of mass incarceration, when white folks are ensnared by it, doesn't affect them in the same way. When they're branded criminals and felons, they're not viewed as criminals and felons in the outside world. But that felon label, that criminal label, serves to define who black people are. And in fact, even if you haven't been branded a criminal or felon, you are treated as though there is something about you that is wrong by employers and in the world more broadly. So part of what white privilege is to me is the freedom to make mistakes and go on. That is a privilege that poor folks of color in this country, particularly young people, don't have. My name's Michelle Alexander. I'm a law professor at Ohio State University and the author of The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. I think Tim Wise's work has been enormously important in raising the consciousness of white folks about how they are, whether they want to admit it or not, whether they realize it or not, are actually complicit in prevailing systems and practices of racial inequality and discrimination in the United States. It is easy to remain in denial, particularly if you're white and not directly affected by mass incarceration or the biased, get tough approaches to immigration policy, to imagine that this doesn't have anything to do with you. And what Tim Wise has brilliantly done, in my view, is to challenge white folks, to imagine that they too have a race. They are not raceless people, raceless neutral people, objective observers of the American racial drama, but they are actually part of it and have a responsibility to do more than sit back and watch, but recognize their own role in co-creating what is either a fair, inclusive, truly democratic society, or a society that is predicated on the indifference towards people who are labeled as others. So I'm grateful for Tim Wise's work and the role he has played in raising consciousness, challenging white folks and others to think about the meaning and significance of white privilege and what white folks have a responsibility to do in this time. You say what? Hello.
Hi, Oprah.
Hi.
What I'm calling about to say is I don't think I'm prejudiced, but if I would get on a bus and this gentleman, the first gentleman with the hair, would sit next to me, the way he's dressed, I would grab my purse and probably move to another seat. It's because of his looks. It's scary.
That's because it's out of our culture. Well, that's interesting. Clarify, madam, what you're saying. What does the word scary mean?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
Well, now would be a very good time to figure it out. What does the word scary mean? That is my question.
Well, you would frighten me.
I understand that. What does the word scary mean? Or, same question, why would I frighten you? I haven't been in a fight since I was in 8th grade.
Well, you're probably not normally dressed up in a suit. You just look like you're a tough guy.
If she went to Jamaica, she'd be frightened all the time. Well, madam, let me then answer the question.
So what is it? Is it because of the way he's dressed, the color of his skin, or his hair? Is it his hair?
Yes. Yes. And I'm sure he's not always dressed in a suit. He helps.
So does that mean you're frightened of all men who are not dressed in suits?
No. It's just the garb, I think, that would scare me.
Well, this is interesting, madam. Let me then advance this point. I speak of the old racism, which was pre-Dr. Martin Luther King. I then speak of the new racism. One of the things you have to understand about racists or about yourself is racists are inherently intellectual cowards. They won't come out and say, I hate niggers because I hate niggers. Story over. What they will do is take pseudo-facts. They will take facts that are not true and use that as the intellectual pyramid to come to a conclusion that is inaccurate. If you actually want to talk about the statistics, if you are afraid of me on that bus, I don't ride on buses, because you think I'm going to murder you, there is no statistical basis for that. You are more likely to be murdered by your husband, by your son, by your brother. If you are afraid of me sitting next to you on that bus that I don't ride on, because you are afraid that I'm going to rape you, statistically, your boyfriend, your husband, is more probably going to be the rapist. So I'm saying you are the manifestation of the new racism, and you have used the same pseudo-intellectual statistics to construct a racist position.
Thank you, caller. I'm sure you didn't know you did all that with one phone call.
Yeah, let's do this one more time.
Funny how the media covers white riots versus black protests. It seems like when the protesters are black, the media uses some pretty harsh words.
Bad guys, lawlessness, looting, wild animals,
Criminals and thugs.
Thugs. Isn't it the right word?
However, if you're white and you're tearing up the city because of a game, you're just young people.
Young people danced on it, flipped over cars as UK fans did stupid things.
Maybe got a little out of control.
Seeing a scene like this just shows how passionate the UK fans are.
It's so tough to lose, and unfortunately the ugly side that we sometimes see in sports.
And notice how the police always show up to a black protest in military-grade equipment, and yet the media claims they're just doing nothing.
It's inexplicable why the police are doing nothing.
Let's mobilize the National Guard.
If I'm a rioter and I see the police doing nothing, I might feel like I have a license. You would.
But in white riots, the cops actually are standing around doing nothing.
Another group of cops over there just standing there.
No one was really doing anything.
These guys look like they could be watching a parade. And why is it that the leadership of the black community is always called into question?
Where is the leadership?
Leadership.
The black leadership.
The absence of leadership.
And it goes back to leadership, but that leadership has to come from the community.
But no one ever questions the leadership of white parents who let their kids burn down and vandalize their college campus.
These are just young college students who think they're playing some kind of a game with police officers.
You know, sometimes they don't even call a white riot a riot.
Party gone awry.
Some fans got a bit too rowdy after the win.
Dispute. A bloody brawl.
There was some type of altercation.
Waco, 170 arrested, 9 people dead.
They're not thugs.
Baltimore, no deaths, but it's a riot, chock full of thugs.
Thugs. Just thugs.
What if the media portrayed the white rioters the same as black protesters? Let's switch the audio and see how it plays out.
Breaking news, violent protest.
What you're looking at is the unraveling of the civil society.
Criminals and thugs.
And they're raising hell, and they're destroying property.
These idiotic thugs, rioting and looting, are hurting their own people.
Wild animals burning buildings down.
Especially if they know the media's all there, right? Got the cameras on everyone. It's become its own reality show.
Who acts like that towards a police officer?
Think for yourself. Don't let racist media color your perceptions. Demand fairness in media coverage. Tell the media to put an end to calling black people thugs.
All right, so interesting perspective of how the world views black people. You know, nobody wants to admit it. Nobody wants to have this conversation because it's taboo. And they don't respect you. And it's been ingrained into the social fabric of society. They have stolen your land. See, that's the whole thing. All these different approaches, they're respectable. But to get to the root of the problem is theft, torture, rape, murder. That is the root of the problem. It is considered undiscussable. I didn't do that. Your forefathers did. I didn't do that. Your forefathers didn't create lies to keep our land from us. You did that. But, and this is the point of bringing attention to white privilege. This is things that have been taboo, but now that the focus is on them. The term white privilege. Now this highlights how white privilege can be done. Because there has always been a caste system in place. And this caste system has been set up to take your title from you, to take your land from you, to take your heritage, your honor, and your culture, and your future. How many dark-skinned people have blossomed under these conditions. You heard that, man. That was part of it. You heard the Batman. Raiding people in the day, raiding people in the night. All throughout Illinois. But if they go to the white neighborhoods, their parents would get lawyers. Well, why is that possible? Well, let's see. If black people are successful, then that means when they die, the father and mother pass on their possessions to the son. And then there's been ongoing wealth circulated within that family. Now, you don't see many families like that, but you see many white families like that. Now, it's easy to say, well, how come one can benefit from and the other can? As you've heard, white criminals get hired. White men with felonies, white criminals, get hired before innocent black people. Well, why is that? Because employers are just like the lady on the phone in the Oprah Winfrey clip. Well, I perceive that you're a threat to me based upon your look. Dark skin and afro hair. Period. Well, why is that? And it's because racism is inherited, but not through blood, through education. And this is the point of telling you why it's through your education. See, when a baby's born, a baby doesn't know anything until the baby's taught, until the baby is educated. Can't walk till you learn. Can't talk till you learn. You can't force your kid to talk. The kid starts talking at its own time, at its mind's own pace. You put books in front of the kid. Once the kid can talk, then the kid can read letters, and read sentences, and you understand that progression. Based upon what you place in front of that child is the level of education that child will reach. Period. But if you educate a child with lies, that's the key. Now, Ultron, fallen angel Ultron states, humans are designed to supplant the one previously before, the father. Now, listen to this. If your father wasn't nothing but a fucking slave, then what is there to fucking supplant? You live in a system that tells you that you're free. So, you're already free. You don't seek freedom. That's the mental lie. That's the matrix of it all. That you're free. You are not free. Go and chop down a tree in somebody else's yard. We'll see if they call the police on you. If you were free, you could take any tree. Any tree that you saw. You could chop it down, make it anything you want. But you're not free. You live under lords. So I want you to think about these things, because everybody is either on top or on bottom of somebody else. Now these people were sent here as if they were kicked off their land. Our ancestors signed treaties with them that both parties be sovereign to the other. We take care of our own and you take care of your own. Those treaties were broken. To separate you from that knowledge and to tell you that you're from some fucking other place and they brought you here as pets. So now that puts the mental program into your head to never act like a pet, to always be disobedient. And this is the code that makes rap so interesting to our people. And it doesn't matter who created rap, it matters what it does to us. It doesn't matter if fish in the sea are good, if they're poisoned and radiation comes from them now. It's what it does to us now. Once it's radioactive, there's no going back to take the radioactivity out. It's already poisoned. And this is why they want you to stay poisoned. So you stay in that mentality of never climbing over your forefathers. Right? Now, look at the white society. They know who their father was before them, for the most part, without any broken lineage. So the children of Thomas Edison wanted to be better than Thomas Edison, and their children want to be better than them. And you see how that builds up their family name. And if your family name relates to this Bible, they want to keep you at this low. They never want a leader to rise up. When this Tupac was killed, the man studying his death wrote a book stating the CIA and the FBI, their goal is to stop a black leader from rising. You don't understand these things because you've decided not to seek anything in these books. You've decided not to let these books influence you. Most of us run around with the Bible and we haven't even read one book all the way through. These books hold a history of us. This Bible holds the reason of why we were taken down as a whole, why other dark nations are grouped together with us, and the prophecies of what will come. Making them change one law at a time isn't going to help you. These people make careers out of arguing against racism without pointing the finger directly at white supremacy. If this woman had the opportunity, she would ignore every failing step of Martin Luther King Jr. If you don't want people to control you, if you don't want to be a puppet, you have to separate from the puppeteer. Everything in this world is done by force. And I can't help that. You sitting up is done by a force inside of you. The sun sitting up, sunrise, is done by a force. Everything in this world is done by a force. Our enslavement, colonization, was a force. All exodus shall be a force. There is no chance of us surviving here amongst them. Their system is built on the destruction of all color people. It's built on the immediate destruction on the Afro-Asiatic people first. These people cannot bring the root of the problem to the table, or they'll be disbarred, blackballed, or assassinated, or poisoned, same thing. And they're too afraid. They've built too much into their name. But the truth is obvious. But we don't want to say it because it's taboo. They put stores in our communities where you do not have the best life, you don't have the greatest assets. Most of you don't own your own car. Some of you lease cars. Most of you don't own your own car. They put stores in your communities. They say, you cannot come in with a bag. If you have a bag, you have to leave your bag at the front of the store. You go to a store to buy groceries. You can't take the cart home. So to take a bag would help you. What do they think? It's if you have a backpack, it's easy for you to unzip your backpack and reach around and put shit in. I think that would be obvious on camera. It's calling a whole of a people's group. So we're not a race of people. We're many races with the same feature to a great degree. Afro hair and melanated skin. They're calling a whole group of people forced under one title, black. This fucking Combs black. This is my cousin. Thieves. All of you people will come in here and steal. So you can't have a bag in here. Instead of waiting for a thief to make an action, so then you can say thief and call the police. You would bar the people from making it easier in their lives. And these things, these types of things, you know, white people are more likely to get hired. So if you have a job, a steady income, you're more likely to have a bank account. You know, there's a bank in this black, on the edge of this black neighborhood where the black and the white neighborhood meet, and if you try to get change from the bank, they will say you cannot have change. We cannot make change for you unless you have a bank account. You understand how racist that is? You look behind the counter, what's the ratio of white versus black people? What do you think? It's called a token black in when you go out at a bar. What is it called at work? It's the same thing. A token black. What is it? 1 per 5? 1 per 10? So now they try to hide it with the Babylonian system. Let's invite other races here to fill the gap of the obvious. And all this promotes is there will be a separation later after extermination starts. Again, when you type in guillotine into Google Images, these are brand new guillotines. Who the fuck needs a guillotine today? Who orders a guillotine? Some rich guy and some you have to remember, history repeats itself. We are how many years since the 60s? The 60s repeated what? The 1890s? '1890 repeated what happened in what? 1820, 1830? Every 60 to 70 years is a mass culling with black people. And as black people see it, they start to do the wrong thing. Blah, 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 instead of marching the fuck out of here. That's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a bunch of different videos of Malcolm X saying, we need to leave. We need to leave. And I'm going to play them. And I'm going to keep stopping it over the part where he starts to say it. And then, so it just sounds like it's a record. We need to leave. We need to leave. We need to leave. I'm just going to do that. Because it doesn't matter if I say it. 15 out of 1,000 people bought some sleeping bags. Oh, right. You know? I say learn how to start a fire or buy something, a device that'll be able to start a fire. I think like one person did it. I think 4 people have bug out bags. You're choosing your demise. That's what you're doing. You're willfully choosing. You can't win in the system. This system for you equals death because death is their God. Yes, yes, yes. They have many gods though. You've got to remember, we're under Greek law, Roman law, Greek, Roman law, and each of those societies had a pantheon. We know the Freemasons have a ruling piece of the society. We know the Mormons have a piece. We know the Jehovah's Witnesses have a piece. We know the Catholics have the rest. And we dare to view it that way. These people rule us under separation of church and state. Right? If you have a belief, that don't mean shit because their law is on top of that. But they overthrew us on their faith belief that they have the right to wage war and set up commerce. You've got to see what's really going on. In this video, double standard was highlighted all the way through. But there's a lot more that's not highlighted. Every facet of melanated skin, from birth till death, has been fondled with. The food that you would be particular to is fairly poison. There aren't many dark-skinned people that live into the 70s, into the 80s. There ain't that many that live past 60. We have an expiration date as a male, and it's in our early 20s, and we know it. For the most part, it's unspoken. Because usually you relate these things to your peers. And the problem is, in our society, we've been brainwashed to kill our peers. Look at me. People argue from a biased perspective when clearly there's a clinical truth. And when you tell people, please read the history of this before you keep saying things, and then they refuse, the next thought is to smash their face. There is no way around that. When you logically try to reason with someone. See, this isn't like I'm saying, hey, stop and listen to my theory. Stop and listen to my belief system. No, there's a fucking clinical truth to everything. Listen, if you want to say werewolves are make-believe, they have a clinical term for it. Science can literally back that up. And that's all I'm saying. Those things really test me, and I'm sure other people have their limits drawn, but the problem is we're not drawing them at clinical truth. We live in a system of white supremacy. That's the clinical truth. Any white person that denies it, it'd be more interesting to hold up portraits of white people hanging black people with smiles all over their face. Anybody that denies it, it's better not to talk to them and just show them a picture that's pleasing to them. Because that's all they want. They want a picture that pleases them. Nobody's pleased with saying, you're the children of very wicked people. Look at the wickedness that you've done in history and that you do today. There's no way to disassociate you from your ancestor because today you still do that wickedness. Nobody wants to hear that. That's taboo. The best way is to get out of the way. You're trying to cross the street. A speeding car is coming down the street. It's best to get out of the street. You're in a country that is hell-bent on self-destruction. It's best to get out of the country. You're poor. How will you do it? It's best to have a moving house. It's called a tent. Look up hiking, look up backpacking. You must outthink this on a reasonable level. You have flooding and a lot of different things going on in a lot of different areas. A lot of destruction. Their cemented homes are destroyed. They could really use a tent right now. You going to that area with a tent puts you in a better condition than they are. And you can't even understand that right now. I suggest you really focus on this name. This name, Haya. Because there's not much that's going to save you. When I go into the Strong's Concordance, that's the translation of I am that I am. That is the Hebrew translation of it. That is the God of Moses. Moses brought us the term, I am that I am. I will be does not translate. This doesn't stand for will be, and that's why I stick to am. When it says they will say I am in their hearts when they do wickedness, and I see will I am, it doesn't say I will be. It says will I am. And that's why I focus on that. And that's why I preach higher. And that's why I preach the 10 Commandments. Without those 10 Commandments, wickedness comes upon us. We've been tricked to worship 3 other gods, at least. The 10 Commandments say don't worship Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades. The people that are in politics, that control the laws, worship 322, that's Hades. The people that deal with technology, deal with the thunderbolt, that's the cable, that's Zeus. The people that are out chasing artifacts that are under the ocean, you already know that's Poseidon. We've dishonored our parents. Everything that's about us are in books, and we have chosen not to read. We've accepted the term slave, black. We've accepted the term Negro. We have chosen to not seek our heritage. They have taught us how to steal. And yet we know the law. And we purposely steal from each other and feed off of each other like parasites. And we enjoy it. And we teach our children over and over again. Yet we know better. We see the man next to us have something we want, and instead of putting effort in to set a goal, we'll take it. We'll covet his jewelry, his shoes, his woman. Every step we take here has been taught wrong. Everything in this society that you win social awards for, our laws say is wicked. We must purge ourselves. We only have Him. Right now, we're dependent on man worship. We worship people that control us as they worship other things. We have chosen not to take our destiny into our own hands because we fear that He's not going to guide our hands. Our belief system is where we must start. We must come back to the Creator. He gives us the courage to face the animals of the wild. Even the animals with guns. Even the animals with badges. We must leave their authority and set up our own system. Since we have been oppressed, since we know so much what the word fair means, we need to be somewhere so we can treat each other fair, without an outside ruling influence in flesh.